This is the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, where we have conversations with everyday martial artists about their histories and how martial arts influence their daily lives. You are listening to the abbreviated version of this podcast, which is the first 20 minutes or so of the show. Please consider supporting the show by subscribing on our Patreon page, www.patreon.com/malmag, and for about the price of one coffee shop coffee per month, you can get access to 4 new podcasts each month, 1 week before their YouTube release dates. You also have access to all of our existing shows, which at this point is about 100 hours of shows for you to enjoy. Individual shows can be purchased at our Gumroad page. That is malmag.gumroad.com. In this episode, I connect again to another one of my Southern California compatriots. This is one of my fellow Inosanto Academy friends, Alex Paik. Alex's journey begins in California, but takes him to New York and then back to California again. Alex talks about being an artist and how martial arts helps him with being a stay-home dad. Sit back and enjoy his story. Welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, and today I've been hounding this guest for a while to be on my show. Good friend that I met through the larger Inosanto family back in the days when he was actually traveling here quite a few times to attend instructor camps. And then lo and behold, I guess he thought it was a good place and decided to move here and become more of a permanent fixture at the Inosanto Academy. Welcome, Alex Paik.
Thanks, Tim. I'm excited we finally made this happen. I hope I live up to your expectations.
Oh, no, come on. We have such a good time with our conversations in class that I think this will just be a fun interview to do. And just because, I mean, these podcasts, like I said, are about the actual people that are the guests. So it's about kind of your history and getting into martial arts and how it all relates to your life and such. And, first of all, I want to say, everybody, Alex gets up on Saturday morning and comes a bit of a way to kind of help out with the kids class, which is kind of like herding cats in a way. And I've never seen a better cat herder than you and Glenn.
It's a good cop, bad cop type situation.
Right. And Dan Forsey in there as well. Someone we need to get on here as well. But you guys do a marvelous job of really helping out with that class. So I just want to express my appreciation there before we go too much further. And I guess let's just jump into it. How and when did you get involved in martial arts?
So I feel like I've been at least indirectly involved in martial arts most of my life. I would have to take Taekwondo lessons when I was when I was a kid, just as part of a lot of Korean Americans or a lot of Korean immigrants, they send their kids to Korean school on the weekends. So I would have to go for several hours on Saturdays, and you take language classes, and then usually you have to take other classes in there. So you're not just studying language all the time. So I would do Taekwondo stuff there. I did Tang Soo Do when I was probably middle school to high school. So maybe for about 6 years at this little school next to my dad's store. And I got my black belt in that, but I don't remember any of the forms. So I'm a terrible Tang Soo Do representative. But I remember that's also when I first encountered the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. And I still have that copy because, it has all these, it's a little embarrassing to look at now because there's all these notes in there from what a middle school / high school student thought was quite profound, at that time. So I still have that. And I remember just, I would always, me and my sister and my brother, we were latchkey kids. So we would always be watching Bruce Lee movies over and over again. And I just remembered really being impressed by just the idea of Jeet Kune Do. It felt very freeing. It felt very, very different than kind of a more traditional martial arts system like Tang Soo Do. Although even though my My teacher was pretty he was pretty like kind of reality based. I think we would have to spar a lot as well in his class. Yeah, so then I kind of took a break during college, just because I moved away for college, um, and through grad school as well. And then when I moved to New York in 2010, I remember I just Googled like Jeet Kune Do, New York City, or something generic like that, and Anderson's martial arts popped up. And I like to think it's luck, but obviously there's lots of work that goes behind the scenes to make sure your name pops up first on Google and all
Right.
that stuff. So they did a good job with that.
Yeah,
And I,
did
yeah,
something, you Googled something generic and you got a very ungeneric person. That's cool.
yeah. And so I did a trial there and I was just hooked. And I trained there for 10 years under Sifu Dan Anderson. Um, and that's how he was one of Terry Gibson's students. So he was connected to
Oh,
the Inosanto family. Yeah.
okay. I did.
Um,
That's really cool.
yeah. So that's how I got connected to Guru. He would come out every year for a seminar, and then eventually I became an instructor under Guru. So then that's how I met you and some of the Inosanto folks. When I would come out for the instructor camps, and then in 2020 we moved to LA. So now I'm really excited to be like a direct student under Guru for this next phase of his life.
Yeah, that's cool. God, it's been 2020. Wow.
Yeah.
That's seems like not so long ago, so long ago. At
Yes.
the time, it's one of those weird, yin yang things where it feels like, you've been here not that long, but you're like an old soul fixture to the school as well. I think a part of that is probably just because of you coming out for instructor camps and stuff as well. So it seems like you've kind of been there as a presence longer than 2020,
Mm.
realistically. So where did you grow up then? So you said you moved to New York. So where were you?
Yes.
You grew up?
Well, actually, my childhood was in Southern California, but I grew up in a suburb of Philadelphia.
Oh,
So we
okay.
moved there when I was in fifth grade, and from fifth grade through grad school, I was in Pennsylvania. I went to Penn State for undergrad, then I went to University of Pennsylvania for a graduate school.
Wow. Wow. So what made you pick New York after that?
Well, I mean, I'm an artist, so that's one of the
Oh,
big cities you would go to for
of
for
course.
that. But also it was kind of based on chance a little bit. My wife is a physician, so I don't know if you know how like the match process works, but like basically like
No.
you rank. It's really quite strange. Like you rank like what schools you would like to be placed at, and
Uh-huh.
then there's some sort of computer program that just like matches everybody and it tells you where you're gonna go. Um,
Oh,
and you can decline it, but you kind of don't really have a choice in the matter of where you end
sounds
up
like
going.
military.
Yeah, yeah, basically, yeah. So I mean, we had some control in which in terms of like my wife could only pick New York places or Philly places or whatever, but I think she applied to a smattering of major cities, and that's where we ended up going for
Wow,
her.
that's kind of cool. That is really pretty cool. I didn't know that. And it's funny how many doctors I actually know, and I have no idea. I know some of them, well, like Lee and Beth from the academy too. It's like, how do these folks get, moved around from places like Omaha to LA? And it's like, huh. And I figure it's just like the usual job hunting process. You're kind of looking around, you field an offer, and you're like, oh, yeah, okay, that sounds good. And there you go. I had no idea it was some sort of computer network and that. That's really pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's really yeah, I don't know. It seems like a bad system, but maybe I just don't know about enough about it.
Well, yeah, it feels like because it feels like you're kind of like you said, you have some choice, but not a lot, and that can be very, I think, unnerving to people. It'd be unnerving to me. I know personally, that would drive me nuts. I would feel, um, I don't know, I guess manipulated, enslaved, or something to that effect. But
Right.
it's also not the field that I went into. So, that I think there's a point in time when I mean, I got into film and TV. So yeah, where do you go for that? Well, LA, New York. So it's, I guess, sort of the same thing. I'm just imposing it on myself in that manner. But this was sort of the place I wanted to be anyway.
Hmm.
Born out here myself, didn't grow up here, but I wanted to come back. So easy choice.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty interesting. So Philadelphia is kind of a rough town from the few people I know known from there.
I mean, it's not really. I mean, just you're just not if you're just not stupid, it's fine. I never encountered anything. I never encountered anything in my time there, really.
Yeah,
I,
like
I,
anywhere.
I yeah, it's like any major city, just,
Yeah,
just don't be clueless and you're fine.
don't walk down to particular parts of town running your mouth.
Yeah, I mean, most people, honestly, in most major cities I've been in, they just just want to just like live their lives and be left alone. So as long as
Right.
you're not
Yeah. Yeah.
bothering people, you're fine.
Yeah. Well, it's like anything else. The dramatic stuff gets the press coverage, and if that's what's being covered all the time, you tend to think that it's more probably prevalent than it is.
Right.
Just because that sells the, well, I guess I'm gonna say sells the issues, but nobody buys hard copies anymore. It gets the clicks.
Right. It
These,
gets drives engagement. Is that the new way to say that?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, exactly. So, curious about Korean school because that's obviously not a experience I've had. So you said you learned language, right? And then what? And you learned some taekwondo. So that would be like, I guess, a cultural, physical art. What else do you learn in Korean school?
Well, I was a bad student. I mean, going back to your comments on Philadelphia, I remember me and my friend, this was just at some random church in like West Philadelphia. And me and my friend, we would hop the fence and just wander West Philly by ourselves most of the day, which was
So you
not a
skip
smart
school.
idea looking back. But yeah, but usually it's, yeah, you have to do like a couple hours of like language class. That's really the main focus. And then, usually they'll break it up with some sort of like quote unquote elective, like so like taekwondo or something like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, Koreans love sending their kids to after school.
Well, I think any culture loves to do that. It's called get them off of our hands so we can
Yes.
work. Or, I mean, because you said latchkey kids. I mean, that was the same thing. So it's like, the idea there is that parents are just trying to figure out, what do I do with these kids in this gap of time between when school gets out, which is, around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They don't finish working for another 2 to 3 hours. So
Right.
what do we do with them in this period of time? And I mean, you found one of the better babysitters, which is, television. Same thing with me. Bruce Lee and Bugs Bunny, were my
Yeah.
babysitter. Hogan's Heroes,
Yeah.
Gilligan's Island, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I guess I'll pursue some of the Guru Dan questions with you. So you answered the question, have you done Korean martial arts? Because I think he tends to ask that of every person who comes in of almost any ethnicity. Have you seen X martial art from your cultural background? So you've done two of them, Tang Soo Do, Taekwondo.
Mhm.
Um, so what were those? Can you compare your experience in those compared to, because you said you found JKD very freeing, or we could say liberating, I guess we want to use Bruce Lee's word. So what was that difference like? And why were you more attracted, I guess, to, because some people are attracted to a structure. They like that. So there's, nothing wrong with that because it does appeal to people and it helps them. But you found that you desire this more freedom kind of thing. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, for me, I mean, I guess I could be called a creative person, since I'm an artist.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think I'm probably attracted to that. And I kind of have like a I kind of have like a natural skepticism or hatred of authority. So that could also be a factor
You
in like,
free in school and going and walking the streets
yeah,
of Philadelphia.
like not wanting to be told that there's only one way to do things. So I think it's a good personality fit. Um, I mean, I think uh, I did like I did enjoy like learning the forms and stuff, and like I said, like my Tang Soo Do teacher, he was a pretty good mix, I think, of like still trying to do like the very traditional, you know, you learn the sets, and there's like these sort of like kind of like shorter forms too that I don't remember them, but like I remember the idea of them. It was like little scenarios essentially, like somebody punches you or attacks you a certain way and you respond. And we would do those sorts of drills. And then he would also do um, like pretty light sparring, which I think, I mean, I don't know, but I think that was a little different um, when I was studying, you know, versus like the like other Tang Soo Do schools.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that, yeah, I don't know. It's I really like I really like being at Guru's because he really stresses the creativity of it, you know, and he wants you to create it, and he wants to give you a structure, and then you can sort of find out stuff and create on your own and play and learn through that. And so I think that's really liberating, like you said. And um I don't know, and it's interesting to it really, I don't know, it really changes your mindset too, because um I mean, you know, I mean, I don't really want to talk too much about JKD politics, but it's like
You
there's
don't have.
so much of it is like literally the antithesis of what JKD is supposed to be.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but you know, like I mean, I think it's like useful. I think it's like interesting as like I mean, I taught a little bit when I was at Anderson's, and you know, I teach every once in a while out here, and you know, I know you teach obviously.
Hmm.
Um, it's really interesting to see Guru just be like, oh, like yeah, you could do it that way, you could do it that way, and I don't think he's being like, I don't think he's being like glib. I think he really means it, you know,
Right,
and that's really challenging. I feel like as a teacher, because you
right,
want to teachers, you know, it's always this, it's always like trying to put two opposite ends of a magnet together, or is it similar polarities? But you know what I mean? Like where
yeah,
they can never quite touch. It's like,
right,
well, like I have to give them this, I have to give my students this structure and show them some things, but how can I do that, but also like give them freedom to like create out of there, you know, and there's always this
right.
like really interesting balance. So I think, I know I kind of went off the subject a little
No,
bit.
no,
But
no such thing.
that was yeah, that was one of the that's one of the things I really enjoyed about being you know, being under the Inosanto lineage or a student of Guru now. Um, I do remember one thing really clearly from my Tang Soo Do days, was the point sparring. Like, you know, I remember being at some local tournament, and you know, they have like a form section and they have like a point sparring section. And I just remember being so upset because I lost my match because somebody just like stuck his hand out there and touched me on the head. And it was
Yeah,
not like a it wouldn't have been like a real thing. And just
right,
the strategy of that, like because we would spar at our school. So I was still coming from the strategy of like sparring and like being like, okay, well, that was like a terrible trade for my end because I touched your hand and you like sidekicked
right,
me full force in the
right,
chest, you know.
right.
Um, so I remember that being I remember that is was like a really like frustrating moment for me, and being just showing me the limitations of that structure. And you know, I don't know if it's I don't know if it's specifically a thing about Guru. I think just like martial arts has evolved so much now. I mean, I guess that's what Bruce Lee was pointing at when he started Jeet Kune Do. But uh, being able to test things with resistance, you know. I mean, you don't have to like fight all out, but like have some sort of like chaos. There needs to be some sort of chaos of fighting in order
Right.
for anything in order to be able to test anything out. You know, I think that's a really like big difference from I think the sort of traditional martial arts that sort of like I was growing up with.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it's funny. I think you and I had a very similar experience in the point tournament area, and I think what you're describing is something that suddenly became a popular technique. Jump up in the air and tag the guy on top of the head, because it's almost easy as pie to pull off. It's almost like shooting a free throw in basketball, right? And I remember my friend that got me into karate at the time. We were in this tournament, and he won. He won the whole thing. Got his third point by jumping up the air and popping the guy on the head. We walked away, and he was just shaking his head. And I'm like, dude, you won it. And he's like, yeah, on the biggest bullshit move I've ever seen in my life. And he said, I saw it somewhere. And he goes, and I was just fucking around to see if this would be something that actually would go. And here we are, two 13-year-old kids talking about, I think I'd break my hand if I actually did that to somebody, so we came up with some insight on it. But, it's funny how, like you said, the things that you think are so profound when you're 12, 13, right? Those are the seeds, I think. You come up with whatever you think is profound, but if you keep thinking about it, it's the seeds of critical thinking, really. I hope. But and that's where we started to question things. Not that, fortunately, both he and I were involved in a karate school that also did PKA kickboxing. So there was a lot of actual, well, let's get out here and now let's try it with contact. No one in the actual kickboxing class ever tried to jump up and tag you on the top of the head, because you'd get sidekicked right out the door with that. But in the point arena, it worked fine, because you're playing tag. So it is, it's an exploration of do you want to go farther in your critical thinking of this and go, well, which of these things is actually working? And that's a twofold answer. Well, clearly me jumping up in the air and tagging on top of the head works for a point tournament situation. If my goal is to tag you and get a point and win a trophy, perfect. Okay. That's not wrong. That's just what that is. But if I'm in the dark alley, that I don't know, why do so many people walk down dark alleys if that's the scenario we use? I never walk down a goddamn dark. Well, I take that. Got an alley behind my house, and I do walk down it at night when I come home. But it's not exactly something I'm going to do in the dark alley. If someone jumps out at me, I'm not going to jump up in the air and back fist him on the top of the head. I hope that that's pretty evident, and it was evident earlier, but I don't know. Certainly now, with my experience, not something I would do, and I'd come to that realization a long time ago. So, it's a very interesting, large world out there, martial arts, and it's kind of like, what are you looking for? So, for you, what were you looking for when you got into martial arts? It sounds like your parents kind of put you in it initially.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just something that was like physical and also part of my culture or whatever. So I was kind of put into it. But I don't know. I mean, I just like many I guess like many kids in the 80s, 70s, 80s, maybe 90s, like it was like Bruce Lee, and that was it in terms of like Asian men heroes, male Asian, like kind of like role models. So so I mean, it was like God, he's so awesome, like.
And this concludes the abbreviated version of the podcast. Please consider supporting the program by going to www.patreon.com/malmag and subscribing to the show. You can also purchase this individual episode or any individual episode at our Gumroad page. That's malmag.gumroad.com. Thank you for listening to this episode with Alex Paik. Coming up next week, I get on Zoom and I connect to the Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada, and I talk to one of my oldest Hartzell friends, John Gentile. Our Malmag online store at martialartslifestylemagazine.com has a full selection of Timmy B's brand sticks for FMA and Krabiker Bong. Timmy B's brand now selling in Japan as well. Beautiful Timmy B's brand shirts and Dos Manos shirts are available, with new t-shirt designs and more products coming soon. An online course in the Dos Manos method for FMA is available under the Courses tab. More courses coming soon. Check out the Places to Train tab to find schools near you, and click on the Events Calendar page to see what seminars and events are happening all around the world. And of course, visit our main page for articles on the martial arts. Music by Jackal Relic. Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine and the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast are trademarked and copyrighted by TNT LLC.